This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Max and Lando once again came to blows at the Mexico City Grand Prix, the Dutchman coming away with 20 seconds worth of penalties. But the thing is, I don't think it was enough. That's right, get your comments down below. Tommo, British bias, Max hater, yappa yappa yappa. Look, the Austin incident had nuance, so did Austria, but Max's move into turn 7 in Mexico, as far as I'm concerned, that's an absolute slam dunk case of dirty driving. And it's a shame because Max is the most capable driver in Formula 1 right now. Plenty good enough not to have to resort to nonsense like this, and in my opinion, incidents like this damage Max's reputation and his legacy. My name's Tommo. Let's talk about it. Right, let's start out with turn 4, the first incident that came up between the pair of them. And for the avoidance of doubt, this was way less egregious as far as I'm concerned. Lando gets really good traction out of turn 3, a nice second dose of DRS pulls along the outside of Max, is ahead going into the braking zone, remains ahead into the apex, and is at least level with Max throughout the corner. This is a factual description of events, no need to speculate on this. Unlike Austin, Max was unable to get ahead at the apex, but also unlike Austin, Max was able to keep it within track limits. If Max had carried more speed, would he have been ahead at the apex? Maybe. Would he have then overshot the corner and gone outside of track limits? Maybe. And would he have crashed into Carlos Sainz? I mean, surely. But even by the flawed writing of these rules, which is, get ahead at the apex at all costs, Lando was at least alongside, if not ahead throughout the entire corner. It's a fair cop penalty. I've seen people say 10 seconds is harsh. Perhaps. I think that just seems to be the default penalty now for running another driver off the track. Colapinto got a pretty harsh one at the end actually for his contact with Liam Lawson. And Lawson and Perez both could well have got those penalties themselves during the race. It was pretty marginal. Look, personally, I think the 10 seconds is okay because then it allows a more nuanced 5-second penalty to come in when both drivers carry a degree of the fault, which is, I think, what happened to Lando in Austin, right? Lando did literally overtake Max outside of the track. But it's important to take into account the fact that, well, Max was off track himself, and I think that's why Lando only ended up with 5. And on reflection, I think 5 for Lando was probably fair. This turn 4 incident at Mexico was close. It was close racing. Max wasn't ahead at the apex. He was quite close to being. It's marginal. Lando, playing by the rules, knew he had to stay at least alongside Max throughout. He did so, and it worked in his favour this time. And broadly speaking, I think most people seem to agree that Max did deserve a penalty for it. Although there was one person, I won't surprise you who didn't quite agree with that assessment. That's right, it was today's video sponsor Squarespace who disagreed with the Oh no, that's not right. Perhaps Christian could have used Squarespace to build a beautiful bespoke online home to better convince the watching world that Max Verstappen did not deserve a penalty for the turn 4 incident. Squarespace does offer thousands of beautiful drag and drop templates along with their powerful new AI powered design intelligence system. It's free to try, has 24/7 customer support, and I've been using Squarespace since 2018, which predates this F1 YouTube lark at all. I've been a customer for many years. I couldn't recommend them more highly to you. If you're interested, head to squarespace.com/TommoF1 to get 10% off of your very first website or domain, and enjoy. Let's talk telemetry, because that's right, Christian Horner went full Toto Wolff drive to survive, literally printing out telemetry that, according to him, proved that Lando was doing 15 kilometers an hour more through that corner than on Lando's quickest lap of the race, and therefore proved Lando would not have made the corner, and therefore he was only alongside Max because he carried too much speed to even make the corner in the first place, and therefore Max did not deserve a 10-second penalty. Now, I'm not quite sure what Christian's hoping to achieve here because the penalty was already served and there is no plan on appealing it from Red Bull's side. Apparently it's more so to get clarity on the rules, but I mean, the thing is, the argument just falls completely flat when you look at this corner, or should I say pair of corners, because that does matter. Let's go over some basic racing lines, shall we? Something even my small brain can just about comprehend. Here we have the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez turns 4 and 5, a DRS assisted straight ahead of a heavy braking zone into a 90-degree left-hander, followed immediately by then a more than 90-degree, probably 110, maybe 120-degree right-hander. Because turn 5 comes immediately after turn 4, the optimal racing line into 4 and through 4 is different than it would be if it was just a straight line out of 4. Let's take a look at Carlos Sainz's pole lap, for example. He starts out wide, cuts into 4, but does not run right up to the white line on the outside. He's essentially in the middle of the track here in order to open up turn 5. It's a way up, right? The more speed you carry into 4, the wider you go and the more compromised your line into 5 is. Conversely, if you carry less speed into 4, tighten that corner, you open up 5 and can carry more speed through there. We saw a lot of that with Lewis and George having their multi-lap scrap. Lewis trying different lines to see if he could get a bit of a cutback on George. Now again, this is Carlos Sainz's pole lap, okay? So you can assume that this middle of the road approach is the most optimal for going for the quickest lap time, right? No traffic, no battling, no attacking, no defending, okay? Just getting the maximum lap time out of this track. Guess what, Christian? Lando wasn't taking turn 4 at the optimal speed for the optimal lap time, was he? He was taking it at the optimal speed to be alongside Max Verstappen through the corner on the outside. Lando was more than happy to run right up to and over the white line, not fully over, but remember, as long as you keep one wheel at least on the line, not even within the lines, on the line, you are technically still within track limits. Lando's carrying 15 kilometers an hour more through that corner than he was on his fastest lap because he's not trying to drive the fastest lap. He's trying to carry as much speed as possible to stay on the outside. This is not difficult to understand. Saying he was carrying 15 kilometers an hour more does not prove anything. The only way you can look at this and be like, okay, would Lando have made the corner if Max wasn't there, going the speed he was? It's just to eyeball it. And to me, it's pretty clear. I'll put my house on it that Lando would keep at least one wheel on the white line. This looks really clear to me, really clear. They're not appealing it because obviously it will get thrown straight out because it's a ridiculous assertion to make. I don't know what's going on here. I really don't. And also, I don't know why Red Bull didn't tell Max to give back the position. Definitely for the second one, which we'll get into, and probably for the first one as well, right? Because the writing of the rules, like, it's pretty clear and obvious. But then again, at least Christian didn't try and defend the turn 7 move as staunchly as he tried to defend the turn 4 one. Lando comes out of turn 5 ahead of Max, remains ahead through turn 6, and then we get the run to turn 7. Now this is a corner that requires a decent amount of braking and a couple of downshifts as well. It's a quick left-hander, but it's by no means a hairpin, right? You're going up to the quickest, like left, right, Suzuka, Austin, Silverstone-esque part of the circuit. And it's fair to say it's not a typical overtaking spot. For someone to overtake through turn 7, you've got to have, what, a big tyre delta, I think, a big tyre offset. And you're requiring the defending car to be on those weaker tyres and to bog down bad traction out of turn 6. Because even with all that, you've got to get a nose up the inside and get significantly enough up the inside to essentially spook the car on the outside to concede position, right? Yet even though Max is fully behind Lando approaching turn 7, he elects to brake about 50 meters later than Lando. Shout out Planet F1 for the telemetry here, and launches it up the inside, forcing Lando to take avoiding action, and Max goes, I'd say, pretty close to 2 entire car widths off the track. Max stays ahead of Lando and remains ahead of Lando for the next 17 laps as well, by the way, which is important. A move that, in Max's own words to Viaplay, could well have been pivotal in the result of the race. Maybe without the penalties, I could have finished ahead of the Mercedes, so about P4, but then Lando probably would have won the race. Without the penalties, Lando probably would have won the race. Just let's understand what he's saying there. Max got a 10-second penalty for this move into turn 7, the same penalty he got for his move in turn 4. The stewards were deliberating it for quite a bit. It took until lap 20 for them to slap Max with his second penalty, 10 laps after the incident happened. And this, for me, I don't think the punishment fit the crime. I think the punishment should have been more. Because look, it's cynical. Max knows exactly what he's doing. Let's not be naive here. Even the biggest Max Verstappen fan out there, don't underestimate your guy. This is not a mistake. We all know full well he's more prepared to push the boundaries and overstep them than any driver in F1. I mean, maybe Magnussen would do the same if he was in a top car, but he's not. Max knows the rules like the back of his hand, and more often than not, he plays them to his advantage and comes out on top. which is a skill in itself, right? But when you play with those margins so often, sometimes you're going to overstep them. And that turn 7 one was a hell of an overstep as far as I'm concerned. By braking as late as he did for turn 7, he knows full well he's not making the corner. He is far, 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 far too good at this sport for anyone to claim that that was a mistake. And look, it's one thing to go to battle, wheel to wheel, and, you know, try and push the margins and maybe slightly overstep them, right? And that's what I chalk up Austin. That's what I chalk up Austria to be like as well, right? I don't think Max intentionally hit Lando. Lando stayed within track limits, he's entitled to do that. But it's not an unfair assessment to assume that Max would expect Lando to use the runoff. Like, there's nuance to both of those incidents, okay? There's plenty of nuance. But here there's none. He essentially cut the track in order to get back ahead of his championship rival in order to compromise Lando's race. That should not be punished in the same way as a forcing driver off track, which can be very close, can be very marginal, can be very tight. It's dirty driving, it's unsportsmanlike, and the penalty should reflect that. Now, the stewards do have options for harsher penalties available to them. A drive-through, where the car has to drive through the pit lane at the pit lane speed limit and then come straight back out. You've got the stop go as well, which is the same, but you stop, and it's usually a 10-second stop go. No one can touch the car. You can't do a pit stop straight after. You have to then come straight back out, right? Big time loss for that one. You can get disqualified for the race, which is something that typically happens when there's like a technical infringement going on with the cars. Think the skid plates for Leclerc and Hamilton in Austin last year. George's car being underweight in Spa as well, another example. You can get a grid penalty for the following race, or you can get a suspension for the following race as well, which is what happened to Romain Grosjean last time. That happened in 2012 after he was driving chaotically into turn 1 at Spa. Look, if it was me stewarding, I would have given Max a drive-through. Not a stop-go, a drive-through. Stop. Editing Tommo here at 1:45 in the morning. You've got to 11 minutes 46 seconds in this video, so let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you want to support me on Patreon, you can. Medium tier, hard tier on Patreon, soft tier on YouTube and all. I need to go to bed. But keep watching the video for crying out loud, I beg you. All pit lanes are different lengths, meaning the severity of that penalty is track dependent. In Mexico, you lose about 22 seconds down the pit lane. That's not including when you actually stop to change your tyres. So that's about double the 10-second penalty he received. But to be honest, my choice to give that penalty isn't even so much about more time. Max cut ahead of Lando off track on lap 10 and remained ahead of Lando for the next 17 laps until lap 27. And we're all watching it. We're all seeing, like, even if Lando had got close to Max, the risk reward for Lando, is it worth just sitting in behind Max and waiting for him to pit, or do I go for the move? Lando's trying to catch up in the championship, right? The way Max already had defended on 2 occasions, not so much the first one, but certainly the second one, on lap 10, you can understand why Lando, even if he did have the pace to catch and go for a move on Max, wouldn't have taken it, right? But that shouldn't be the case because Max was there illegally in the first place. He should not have been ahead of Lando anyway. He was only there because he clearly and egregiously cut the corner. Lando finished the race 4.7 seconds behind Carlos Sainz. Could those 17 laps behind Max in Max's dirty air have accounted for, you know, that kind of gap by the end of the race? Again, we'll never know, but 17 laps is a long time. The problem with just giving a time penalty is that there's no urgency to serve it. Max was fully entitled to hold on to that penalty, that 20-second penalty, for as long as he wanted until he pit at an optimal time for his strategy. But if you give a drive-through penalty, well, that's something that not only are you enforcing a time penalty, which would be about 22 seconds in this instance, but you can also enforce when the driver serves it. Look back to Sebastian Vettel in Baku 2017 when he drove into Lewis and was given a 10-second stop-go that time round. It took a while for them to come to that decision, but they gave him the penalty in lap 32 and he served it on lap 34, only 2 laps later. I'm not sure exactly how long the drivers are given. I've tried to find the information, but I'm not sure how long a driver actually has to serve a stop-go / drive-through. We don't get them very often, but there's a way that can be enforced, right? It's like, right, you've got this penalty, you have to serve it within 2-3 laps, whatever, and it stops you from being able to do that, to essentially game the system to your advantage or to your opponent's disadvantage in this instance. I do think a stop-go would have been too much, but for how egregious it was, absolutely a drive-through penalty not only fits the crime more, but also it prevents him from holding up Lando in a position that he should never been in the first place. And look, you may think it's harsh for me to say that this is a stain on Max's legacy, okay? But I stand by it, because this is how I feel about Michael Schumacher's career, to be honest. Michael made this sport look easy for years. Super impressive on his debut for Jordan at Spa. Benetton, 2 world titles there. 7 in total, with 5 in a row for Ferrari, 2001, 2, 3 and 4. 91 wins, 155 podiums, over 300 race starts. His status as one of the greatest of all time is indisputable. But, and there is a but, his tactics were absolutely at the line a number of times, sometimes over it. He intentionally wrecked Damon Hill to win the championship in 1994 and unsuccessfully tried the same on Jacques Villeneuve in 1997. He knew what he was doing. He was far too good to not know what he was doing in those 2 instances. He made desperate, unsportsmanlike attempts to win those championships, to varying degrees of success, of course. The talent of Michael cannot be doubted, it is clear for all to see. But these incidents do, unfortunately, stain his legacy for me and many other Formula 1 fans. Not just because, oh, he's not British. Look, listen, I was a Hakkinen guy growing up. Last time I checked, his Finnish. So playing with those margins is an inherent part of Formula 1. Not even talking about the driving, right? Talk about the car development as well. Flexi wings, DAS, the F-duct. Teams will push the writing of the regulations to innovate, right? And it's not cheating, it's being clever. But when you push those regulations so often, sometimes you will go a bit too far. Ferrari's fuel flow sensor, Brabham, McLaren and Williams had water-cooled brakes that they could top up back in the day to make sure they met minimum weight. BAR had a secret fuel tank, right? Very naughty. The list does go on and on and on. Go from being clever to probably cheating. And unfortunately, this incident in Mexico, for me, sits alongside, well, Brazil 2021, Saudi 2021 as well, where he threw it down the inside of Lewis and knew he was never going to make that corner. These are incidents where Max is driving in a way, it's not racing, it's ridiculous. Unfortunately, it does for me stain my perspective of him as an all-time great. The talent is absolutely there, but it's how you conduct yourself. It all comes together. And that's why we're all going to have different opinions, right? We're going to have different takes. Some of you are going to be very happy and accepting of the way Max drives. Some of you are going to go on him way harder than I would. But the play he made in Mexico is one that is straight out of Michael Schumacher's playbook, to be honest. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Drop a like as well while you're down there. Should Max get any additional repercussions in Brazil? Not sure. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.